BTO Media special edition of the Burrows today. Kevin Bunk, Michael Merlo, and Jack Leiden joining us. He will be starting the Banned List podcast soon for BTO, and he'll be making frequent spots like this one, talking all MLB playoffs today. You'll hear our brackets, all of our predictions, what you need to know. Only on YouTube, no Instagram today, and it'll be on Spotify afterwards. But if you're watching live here, comment, get involved with the show. We'll put your comment up on the screen. We'll address it. So we want this to be an interactive episode if you're able to tune in. If not, Spotify works. First, before we get into the actual bracket here, Mike, what are you feeling after yesterday's whirlwind of a game one and then a game two you got to relax?
Yeah, the best game, the best baseball game I've watched in a very long time. I think it's the best baseball game since that. Actually, I don't want to say that because that's a World Series game. I was going to say the Cubs game 7, but either way, like really into it.
That's like 9 years worth of games.
I can't think of a better baseball game, better regular season game since then. I really can't.
Field of Dreams, as good.
Okay, that game was as good. Fine.
That's the one I thought of. But
continue. Other than that, I can't think of one. I mean, it had everything. It absolutely had everything. It had great pitching from the Brave side. It had a comeback, another comeback, clutch home runs, clutch hits. It was unbelievable. So give the Mets credit. It's a game they never win, and it was a great time yesterday. It was a great time.
Jack, your thoughts on that? And also, do you guys miss that game 163 situation? Because I thought yesterday was the only scenario where we'd ever get that emotion again.
I'll start with the Mets game yesterday. I will agree with Mike to a degree that really had everything. That was one of the best regular season games that I've ever watched. It had a playoff feel. Of course, every game between two foes going for one spot at this point in the season does. I wouldn't go as far as to say best game since 2016. I think that's a little bit of a stretch.
It's because that's the last time the Mets were relevant was 15-16. So yeah, finally excited to see them play good baseball.
Guys, that was the best Mets regular season game like of all time.
He's like number one. He's like number one yesterday, number two that Adam Frazier home run in like 2019. Like, he's like, that's it. Those are the two regular season games. That's it.
It was a great game.
In terms of game 163, I think MLB, for all the credit we give them for the postseason expansion, and I think it's a tremendous product. Like, we did not have this a couple of years ago. It was 2 wildcard games, and then that was it for this week. It's so much more engagement for the fan, so much more money they make as well. The game 163 is something I think they got wrong. I like the scheduling too. I like the whole 13 games, less games against your division opponent. You should play more games against everybody in the league, but I don't think that game 163 should be eliminated. I don't think a game that went 7 innings in May and got rained out, and it was like a shortened 7-inning game should determine whether or not you make the postseason. I think it was a massive mistake. I think game 163 was a tremendous product in the seldom years that we did have it. And I'm glad we got yesterday because it did feel like it.
All right, so let's pivot into the bracket here as we have a lot to discuss with the postseason matchups, the 4 wild card rounds that we have. And Mike, the Mets get the 6th seed. We discussed on the Burrows that I think we'd prefer they got the 6th seed to play Milwaukee. I'd rather go back to Milwaukee than go to San Diego, who we both agreed at points over the last 6 weeks. I'm sure, Jack, you felt the same. The Padres might be the best team in the league. So better off going to Milwaukee. What are your expectations, thoughts? What do you need to know for this series?
I mean, I think what we saw this past weekend was that Milwaukee has an advantage over the Mets. They can run on the Mets. Alvarez can't do anything behind the plate. So they are going to be aggressive in stealing bases. They've had success against the Mets in the regular season. Now, in the past, we've seen that not matter, right? We've seen teams struggle against other teams in the regular season and then beat them in the postseason, in a postseason series. So that I'm not really too concerned with. I am concerned about the matchup, though, and the base stealers. The Mets pitcher is going to have to do a good job of keeping these runners at bay. So we'll see if they're able to do that, but they got to get the bats going. They didn't get them going in the first 2 games in Milwaukee. They didn't get them going early in the season. So as long as they get the bats going, I think the Mets have a chance here.
And Jack, what do you think about this series?
It's an interesting one. I think the Braves are sort of and it's seed right now in baseball in terms of they're always sort of in that spot in the Astros. I, you know, fact that they won game one gives them a massive advantage in this series, like massive. Like they didn't pitch nearly anybody in that second game, and I think that. Like, who's it going to be tonight? Is it going to be it's Peterson, correct? No, it's Severino and then
Severino.
Peterson, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Severino, Mania, Peterson. You there,
All right,
Jack?
my Wi-Fi is definitely not the best right now, but
It's Severino tonight, if you can hear me. He can't hear me.
I think I got you. But
All right, well, Mike, we'll just continue here on Mets Brewers.
Right.
I'm worried about the Mets in this series only because of the high of yesterday. And with the wild card round, there's really no time. I mean, you could literally, your season could be over in 48 hours. So where there's no time for the Mets here, the way that this has been structured and laid out, to really enjoy yesterday's win, to soak in the fact that they're playing. They have a game tonight after yesterday in a different city. They had to travel again back to a place where they were Sunday. I'm a little worried about the Mets in this because of yesterday almost felt like, such a big victory that they should have gotten some more time off. Like you'd want 2 or 3 days here.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yesterday really felt like something else. It almost felt like you were slaying a dragon yesterday, winning that game, coming back. So, I understand that. I think hopefully for this team, it propels them. It's a momentum kind of thing where, they ride this high into a nice 2 games here. So we'll see what happens. I'm a little concerned. I do think they're going to win the series though, but I have my concerns.
All right, so you say you think they're going to win. We'll go around Mike first, then Jack, and then I'll give – what's your prediction here in this series?
Yeah, I think the Mets will win this. I think it'll be a close series. I do think the Mets will win this. I'll say 3. The Mets are the only team, them and the Padres, to play a 3-game series in the wild card round. So I'll say the Mets go 3 again and they get the win.
yeah, Mike, you're really qualified to make that answer with your Mets hat on. But I frankly do agree. I agree with you. You can't underestimate. I don't know if you could hear me when I said this, but you can't underestimate momentum at this time of year. Like everyone always says, like, oh, the Mets just played 2 games yesterday, and then they had to fly into Milwaukee. They probably get in like 3 or 4 in the morning. I don't care about that. I think the Mets are hot right now. They finished the season strong in Milwaukee. I wouldn't be surprised if some of their preparation and training staff stayed in Milwaukee in preparation for this series. Maybe, I don't know. I like the Mets in 3.
I'm going to be the buzzkill here. And Mike, I'm rooting for the Mets because I want Burrows with both of our teams in. But I think the Brewers are going to win this in 2. I don't think the Mets win another game after yesterday. I hate to say that, but you addressed it, and I'm going to go a little further with it. The Alvarez base stealing issue is a serious problem going into this because the Brewers stole over 200 bases this season. I think their offense is a lot better than people give it credit for, much more productive, much more dangerous 1 through 9, and they're going to get on and steal, and they're going to have runners in scoring position at least half the innings of the game. So after the high of yesterday, with the Brewers being very underrated, I think, and that stolen base component alone, I like the Brewers to just come in and take care of business. I hope I'm wrong because I really do want to see this Mets team get out of this series. And listen, out of all of my picks today, if one goes wrong, I think this will be the one because I like the Mets a lot, and they've been awesome since June 1st. Next series in the NL is the Padres and Braves. We just talked about the Padres. I think they might be the best team in baseball. Braves coming off of yesterday where they lose the first game. They had to use a lot more than the Mets did because they had to win that second game. Jack, where do you go here with this Braves-Padres series? What are you looking for?
I'm looking to see if the Braves offense can respond a little bit better than they even did after almost clinching in game 1. They only put up 3 runs against the Mets, like back end pitchers. And I mean, but even if that happens, and even if the Braves do put up numbers, and even if Matt Olson finally gets his stuff together here, 2-0 Padres. I think they're too good. I think the Braves are tired. They're dead. They're not that young, especially without Acuna. No Sale, of course, again.
After winning the Cy Young this year, no Sale.
Yeah,
Padres 2-0. They have no pitching.
Yeah, I agree with Jack here. Just because you don't have Sale going, you're going to have a guy that wasn't even in your rotation go today. That's not a good situation. This has been an impressive year for the Braves. We'll give them their flowers. They're not supposed to be here, and they're here. So it's been a good year. Snicker's done a good job, but this is where it ends. They're facing the better team. I'd be shocked if they won this series. I'll say the Padres in 2 as well.
All right, so I agree with you guys there. We're all across the board, Padres in 2. Let's stick with the NL Division Series. The 1 seeds, you have the Dodgers, you have the Phillies, the top seeds with the bye. You have the Dodgers and Phillies. What do you expect from these teams? Are they great? Are they just good as I'm sure, all feel about the American League 1 seeds? What are we looking at here? Mike, you start with these National League teams.
Yeah, these are good 1 seeds. These are legitimate teams. I'm going to have both of them going down here, though, because I think this layoff is massive. I think the layoff is a problem. I think Major League Baseball is going to have to figure something out here with this layoff, because you see too many of these top seeds sit for a week and then they go out, especially in the National League. So I do think both of them go out, but I think Philadelphia is very good. I think Zach Wheeler has a serious case to win the National League Cy Young. I know we were just talking about Sale, but Wheeler had an absolutely fantastic year as well. But after that, I'm a little sketched out by what the Philly has. Suarez really came back to earth in the second half of the season. They didn't add a pitcher because they thought they had him coming back near the deadline. Nola's up and down. So I worry about the pitching with Philadelphia. And same with the Dodgers. I mean, how many starting pitchers did they have go down this year? I worry about that with the Dodgers as well. And I just think the Padres are very, very good.
And Jack, what do you think about these top seeds?
I have the Dodgers going, Phillies advancing. I don't think that there's a better postseason home advantage than Red October. Zach Wheeler is incredible this season. Though I just think that there's a different vibe that changed with the Phillies in October. They're the team that I'll keep that at bay right now, but I think that they're going to go really far this year. And for the Dodgers, I think it might be the same old.
Yeah, we lost him again, didn't we?
Yeah, Jack, we're losing you again here. So I will just take my thoughts here on the Phillies and Dodgers. The Dodgers are interesting because I have them losing in the DS, but this 1 through 5 is so unbelievable that it's hard to actually rationalize going against them. And I think, just like historically, man, are they going to really lose to the Padres again here?
They haven't been good against them in the regular season and the postseason. There's a lot of history here where, it tells you back the Padres.
Yeah, so I'm taking the Padres in that division series. However, that is not to say that I think the Dodgers are bad. I just think the Padres are really, really good. And LA, they're going to have a better season next year. They've had a lot of injury issues. I think that they definitely didn't waste a year here, but they're probably going to be a 107, 108 win team when they finally get healthy next year. Yeah. So I'm high on the Dodgers, but I'm higher on the Padres. And in the case of the Phillies, I think that the Phillies get through this round. But Mike, for all the reasons you mentioned, I could see them missing. And Jack brought up Red October, obviously the best home advantage in postseason baseball, but I get the Phillies in the NLCS there. So let's move to the American League, where you have, I think, Mike, we talked about this, and the layoff might play as an issue in the National League, but in the American League, the wild card teams are much weaker than the National Leagues. There's not a Padres team in the National League wild card. I mean, forget Houston because they won their division. Out of the other 3 teams, there's just not a really great baseball team that lost their division. We thought it was going to be Baltimore in the beginning of the year, and it wasn't. So what do you think about this wild card round? Do you have any upsets in these? We could start with the Astros and Tigers. Tigers made their Cinderella run. I thought the Tigers would beat the Orioles. I can't say the same about them in Houston. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't see any upsets here. I'm going to go chalk across the board until we get later into the postseason in the American League. I think that first game is going to be great today, Valdez versus Skubal. But after that, I think the Astros will squeeze it out in the end, and then tomorrow it'll be the Astros as well. So even if the Astros lose this game today, I trust them that they're going to win this in 3. Same on the other side. I think the Orioles, I'm starting to come around to this take that the Orioles kind of have a fresh start here. And if Brandon Hyde can kind of put it in a way to his team, like, listen, we didn't finish the year well, but there's talent here. And if they can figure it out with their pitching a little bit, I think there is the possibility for a run. So I think they'll get here. They'll win this series. They'll go to the Bronx and play the Yankees and play a tight series there. But I don't see the Royals beating this team.
Jack, if you're back with us here, what do you think on this AL? Do you have any upsets in the wild card round?
I do. I have the Detroit Tigers in 3 over Houston. Let's talk about momentum. I talked about it in the National.
Jack, we're losing you again here. We're losing you again here.
The Tigers.
Losing Jack again there, so just going to bounce him quick there. I don't know if he's able to hear us, but we are, unfortunately, technical difficulties with Jack today, and he's excellent. Mike, do you want to address this comment quick?
Yeah, I do. I have the Mets. If they are lucky enough to get to that divisional round, I think in 5 games they'll eliminate the Phillies. I do. I think there's a possibility, and I think the pitching will be the undoing for Philadelphia here. But a good series, 5 games, and yeah.
That's a big take.
A big upset. It's a big upset.
You
know what? The Mets have had success against Philadelphia. They have. I mean, that's not a lie. I mean, they beat them. They beat them 3 out of 4 without Francisco Lindor.
All right, so that's a big one. I don't even think they're going to get out of the first round. You think they're in the NLCS. So we will see how that plays. In the American League, I have the upset. Jack was saying there, the only thing we heard him say was that he was going to go with Detroit over Houston.
Yeah.
I can't see it. I think Houston's pitching's really good. And I think, we talked about it on Friday. You brought up, look through that Tigers lineup. Nothing really sticks out. You need to score 2 or 3 runs to beat the Tigers. And I think Houston will do that at home. Now, I have the Royals beating the Orioles.
Oh.
But I can get behind what you're saying in terms of the Orioles could have a fresh start. So the way I'm seeing the Orioles, it's one end or the other. It's a first-round bounce because I love Lugo and Reagans. I hate the Royals lineup on the road. I hate it, but I'm going with it. And I love Lugo and Reagans the first 2 days. It's going to be Reagans today. And I think they could just quickly get the Orioles out in 2 here. Probably would take 3, but they could pick them off in 2. Now, Baltimore, if they do get out of this series, I think coast to the ALCS and possibly the World Series.
No,
so
really? You think if they win this series, they beat the Yankees?
I don't think the Yankees can beat Baltimore. I think the Yankees would absolutely beat Kansas City. So that's where I'm at with that part of the bracket in the American League, or the Yankees would beat Detroit if they had to play them. But I don't think the Yankees could beat Baltimore in a 5-game series.
That's incredible. I think the Yankees take them down. I think it's a close series, but I think the Yankees will beat them.
Is a team that just doesn't fear the Yankees. They play them, and everyone in the American League East did this. I think the AL East plays them so much that they're not afraid of the stadium. They're not afraid of the atmosphere. They're not afraid of the moment, and they actually just love going. I think Jack can attest to this, being a Red Sox guy. They love coming to Yankee Stadium and picking off the Yanks. I think they love it. I think the Yankees hate it. I think they hate playing American League East teams.
Yeah, don't get me started on the Red Sox. I tried not to bring them up during the stream.
They were good.
But you did.
It's a playoff preview, so I would assume that they're not going to be coming up, Jack.
Yeah, no, probably not. Yeah, I agree. Actually, for whoever said the comment that BTO is trying to silence my Tigers love and support, and the Phillies love and support. I think that I think that there's just too many problems with this Astros team. We've seen it over times this year. They obviously started off really poorly. Bregman's been hurt. I think that The pitching has not been good. Even when Verlander's come back, I don't even think he's going to be in the playoff rotation. They were talking about him not even being in the playoff rotation. So I think that obviously today's the swing game. If the Tigers win game 1, then you could talk yourself into Tigers in 3. If this is basically their only shot to say, hey, like this is this is where we can gain command of the series, because if they don't win the Scooble start, forget about it. But I think there's too many problems with this Astros team this year, and I think that the Tigers are young. They're playing with house money. They don't care. I don't think that they're afraid of this moment. I think they're going to go in there and win in 3. And then in Baltimore, I think it is a fresh start. I think we just got a Jeff Passan tweet. If you want me to read it aloud for you.
Yeah, please.
It says that Vinny Pasquantino is going to return to the Royals lineup and should bat third for their wild card matchup. If you remember when he got hurt in, I forget if it was late August or early September, they immediately lost 7 consecutive games. He is the leader of that team, of that lineup, in the middle of that order. Of course, Bobby Witt's the best player on the team, but don't underestimate that from a clubhouse leadership perspective. I still have the Orioles in 3. Beg your pardon. I think they win I think they bookend the series. They win the Burn start and they win the last start. Agreed that this is the last. This is sort of a fresh start for Brandon Hyde in Baltimore, and I tend to agree with you, Michael, about Kevin, about the next series in the Bronx.
Well, I don't think Baltimore gets out of the first round, so I don't have the next series with Baltimore beating the Yankees, obviously. But let's go to that next round, the ALDS, where the Yankees have been such a flawed 1 seed. I think the worst 1 seed in the American League in over 30 years with 94 wins. And the Guardians are not a very special top seed either. You look at the disparity between the National League, they have 3 teams that I think are definitely better than either of these 2 teams. And then you look at the American League and you're saying, well, from the Yankees to the Astros, or even to the Orioles, there's really just not much of a difference at all with these teams. So first, are either of these teams really strong enough to be considered a scary top seed threat? Or do we just kind of not care about the fact that they were the best teams?
I think the Yankees, I do think there is something there. I do think they're the best team in the American League. Now, again, we talked about it last week. This team, if you compare them to the top National League teams, I think the 2 and 3 top National League teams are better than them. But the Guardians don't scare me. They really don't. I think they get upset. I don't think they really pose a threat even to the Yankees here.
If Houston gets out of that round against Detroit, I do like them over Cleveland. They've had postseason success against Cleveland. With Baltimore and Kansas City, and I'm not sure that Pasquantino totally changes my opinion on that. I just want to walk that back a little bit. I do think this is going to be a much more fun series to watch now, with the second best hitter in the lineup now back and playing first base. But on the second round, I think it's an interesting one. Kevin, I like the point you made about the teams just not really being afraid of the Yankees and afraid of that spotlight. I think a lot of that has gone away over the last 15 years with the Yankees. And I'm not even trying to say that because I'm the world's biggest Yankee hater. I genuinely do not think that there's anything to be really scared about. I think the scariest part about the New York Yankees, obviously this is not a hot take, is the Soto Judge back to back, and who do you walk, who do you face? Obviously, all that sort of strategy that we've seen several times in the regular season. But I'm not afraid of this rotation at all. Like Garrett Cole in the playoffs as a Yankee, I'm just not that afraid of it. Maybe I'm biased.
I think, I don't want to say you're biased, but I think because of your experiences watching him pitch in the playoffs against Boston, you think that because Garrett Cole in the playoffs against anyone else has been an ace for the Yankees. And the fact that they're not in this bracket makes me feel good about his starts.
Okay, so we all know Garrett Cole is mentally weak, right?
Yeah, for an ace, yes, absolutely.
Okay. If Baltimore hangs a couple runs on him in game 1 on Saturday, he might just go into the tank. Like I like at this point with Garrett Cole, yes, I agree. He's had great numbers against pretty much everybody but Boston in the postseason. But with a team that's young, and once again, like I was talking about with the Tigers, they're not that they'd play them yet, but they're not really concerned with the history and all that kind of stuff. You get a couple runs on them early, the stadium starts booing Cole. What happens? That sort of deal on Saturday. I like Baltimore. I think it's going to be a fascinating series. Does Judge finally show up in the postseason? That's another question. We know Soto's going to. And bigger picture, I know we're not on the offseason yet and all that's, all that stuff. The Yankees better go far if they want to keep Juan Soto. And if they want to prevent him from going to Queens. Because they better go far.
And even that aside, what he does in free agency, Mike and I talked about it. You have Juan Soto. You trade for Jazz Chisholm, who's been very good for the Yankees. You still have Giancarlo Stanton playing at a good enough level as a designated hitter to where he's a threat. Aaron Judge is going to be a unanimous or close to MVP. Gleyber Torres is hitting 350 out of the leadoff spot. You have a $300 million ace. You have a $160 million number two. If you don't, and a rookie of the year candidate as your third guy. Now, you could say whatever you want about Rodon, Heel, Cole. Just on paper, if you don't get to the World Series, that is such a massive failure for Aaron Boone, for Brian Cashman, for Aaron Judge if he doesn't perform. There's so much riding on this, even beyond Soto's free agency, which is massive. So, Mike, I want to throw this question to you because Jack brought up Judge. Am I just being optimistic, or is this year probably different for Judge because he's never been this protected in the Yankee lineup? I also just want to throw out there, so I don't forget, the one thing the Yankees have never had in the Aaron Judge era is the AL's top seed. They've never had home field advantage throughout the American League, and I always thought that was an issue because they only have lost series where they're on the road.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think the conversation is going to be about Judge. If Judge struggles here, especially in that first series, and even if they are able to win on the backs of Soto, like this is now going to become a conversation, right? Like this is going to become a legitimate conversation that this guy can't hit in the postseason, and it might actually tarnish what he's done a little bit. No, I think this could really hurt his legacy a little bit if he comes out here after three really historic seasons and he has another bad postseason. That's not good. So I think for all the reasons you gave, this is the most important Yankee postseason run in a very, very long time. It just feels as though, listen, we're not saying they have to win the World Series. We understand the teams in the National League are very good, but at the very least, this team has to be playing in the World Series or it's been a massive failure. And I don't think they're getting there, and I think Boone will be canned after this season. But it is such a big postseason run for this team. They better get to this World Series. And I don't know what implications it has on Juan Soto staying or not, but they have to get there.
Jack, I don't know if we have you here right now, a little bit frozen on the screen, but who are your ALCS squads and who goes beyond to the World Series? All right, so we don't have Jack. So, Mike, your ALCS, NLCS matchups, and your World Series predictions.
So my NLCS matchup, the Mets hat, whatever. It's Mets Padres. Okay, in the ALCS, I have Yankees Astros. So I have two very good, both New York teams in there. Very good, intense series.
That's great for business with the Burrows. That's
great for business with the Burrows. I have the Padres advancing to the World Series in 6 games, and I have the Astros in 7 games advancing to the World Series.
And then who wins the World Series for you?
I have the Padres in 6. I really think this is the Padres year. I actually placed a bet yesterday on the Padres at plus 1,100 to win the World Series. So the Padres are my team here that I think goes far and finishes the run.
Jack, your Final Four World Series and winner?
I like the Orioles. to face the Tigers in the American League Championship Series. I don't know if you still have me.
I wish we didn't.
That is crazy.
Oh my god. All right. To each their own.
Is he still here?
I think that we don't have him now. I think that we lost him right after that electric take.
He's here. Where is he? Oh my god!
Listen, Kevin. And another thing, by the way, about the Yankees that I was trying to say before Aaron Boone cut the wire on my Wi-Fi. Nobody's afraid of the Yankees anymore. Just listen to what Michael said. They have to be playing in the World Series, but if they don't win, it's not a big deal. This is the New York Yankees. Like, how far have the expectations fallen that we're like, oh yeah, if they make it to the World Series, it's because they haven't done it in so long. Nobody is afraid of that spot anymore. I'm sorry. No one's afraid of the logo. No one's afraid of the new stadium. No one's afraid of the team. No one's afraid of the 211 hitter in the postseason that can't get his act together when it counts the most. Nobody's afraid of that team, and nobody's afraid of Kermit either. Absolutely no one.
Which is exactly what I was, saying about Baltimore. The AL East teams love to play the Yankees because, listen, we're all being ignorant if we were to sit here and say the teams don't care about beating the Yankees. Not that they're scared of them, but the teams love to beat the Yankees because there's that national bias, there's that fan ego that comes with playing the Yankees and being in their division that has to bother you. It has to, because they don't deserve objectively to get that coverage and to get the hype that they do. They're no better or not that much better than Baltimore or Houston or Cleveland. They're just not, but they get covered that way. And the way that the media covers Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani, Mike and I talked about this 2 weeks ago, it really has to be frustrating for a Royals fan. It has to be frustrating for a Mets fan. It has to be frustrating for guys for teams who have players that are next best in the league after the MVPs that are in baseball's precious big markets. What I will say is, just because they're not scared of them, it doesn't mean the Yankees aren't the best team in the bracket. I think the Yankees are the best team in the American League playoff bracket. Could they lose in the first round? Absolutely. Could they lose in the championship series? Absolutely. Could they lose in the World Series? Absolutely. But they could definitely get there. They absolutely can get there, even if you think they're going to lose in the first round. To say that a team with Juan Soto, with Aaron Judge, with Garrett Cole, with Jazz Chisholm, Giancarlo Stanton, Austin Wells, to say that group isn't good enough to get there is also very ignorant and maybe biased. And I know you didn't say that, but for people who are thinking that, I think that's completely incorrect.
They're absolutely the best team in the American League. I mean, they are on paper, they're the best team. I really don't even think it's a question. Now, again, it's different when you get into a postseason series and you view the matchups and you view the history and you're like, okay, you know what? I do have the Astros getting there at 7 and beating them based on history. But, that's a prediction. I do think on paper, this Yankee team, I completely agree with you. And that's why the standard's high. I mean, that's why the standard is for me and you to say, hey, they have to get there. Like, that's why that's the standard.
And I don't know if Jack's still here, if he wants to chime in, but I would say also for my bracket, I don't have Houston in the ALCS. I have the Yankees and the Guardians. I have the top 2 seeds, which I hate to do because I don't think it'll happen, because historically and over the last 2 years with this expanded playoff, it doesn't happen. But I have the Yankees and Guardians. Also, at some point, don't you think as a fan, this isn't why I picked Cleveland, but at some point, if the Yankees were to be in 4 championship series in 7 years, they got to play someone else other than Houston. And I also think they beat Houston this year. With home field this season, I think they would beat Houston. Baltimore is the team on the bracket that I think scares me the most, that I think should scare the Yankees the most. And if they're going to take them out, they're going to have to do it in a best of 5, which is even worse than having to do it in a best of 7, because I'd take their odds in a best of 7 with Baltimore's pitching. It's not that much of a problem in a best of 5.
Yeah, the shorter series, you have a better chance of the lesser team winning. Yeah, agreed.
You could just get burned right away by a team like Baltimore. Burns, who
burned by Burns,
probably wouldn't pitch. That's where you have a little advantage as the 1 seed, right? Like Cole wouldn't get Burns. It wouldn't negate each other. As tonight, Skubal and Valdez, I think, will completely negate each other
Mhm.
in this game tonight. That's why I think Houston wins the game. And Jack mentioned it before. They got to win the Skubal start. I think Houston wins tonight because out of those two pitchers, I know one's the Cy Young. Which guy is going to get a shutout tonight through 6-7 innings? I'm taking Valdez because that Tigers offense is awful. It's the worst offense in the postseason. It's not even close. And Valdez is a monster playoff pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, who's pitched the playoffs and had success? It's Valdez.
And who's hitting the playoffs and had success. And so I'll take Houston to put 2 or 3 up on Skubal and then another up on the Tigers' pen.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
All right, so Jack, if you're with us, World Series prediction.
Okay, so Baltimore gets to the World Series and they play Philadelphia. It's sort of chalk on the National League side. Obviously, I mean, I haven't really had a chance to say it, but the American, and it's not saying much, the American League is so weak this year. And, you know, I do think it's a total embarrassment if the Yankees don't make it with all the money they've invested in the team and, you know, the fact that they haven't made it in so long and all that kind of stuff. But I do think Baltimore gets them out in 5 and celebrates on the diamond at Yankee Stadium, and they end up getting to the World Series because I do like them over Detroit in a 7-game series. I think they get there from the American League side, and then Philadelphia. I think last year losing that Game 7 at home, losing 6 and 7, I believe, at home to the Diamondbacks. That's got to sting, especially in that ballpark where the fans are like, don't get down 2-0 in the series because the fans are going to start turning on you as the fans in Philadelphia do. I don't think they do, though. I think, you know, for as good as the field is in the National League, I do think pretty much Philadelphia has a good run to the World Series, and I do think the Phillies finally get over the hump this year. They've been close. They've had this team sort of together for a couple of years now, and I do think they finished the job this year in 6 over Baltimore.
Yeah, I have the Padres and the Phillies in the championship series, but I have the Padres winning. So, Mike, you and I both have the Padres winning the World Series, and I have them winning over the Yankees. I think with the Yankees, they're bound to get bounced at some point because their flaw of being able to close games, both offensively and defensively, in the final 2 innings is going to catch up with them at some point. You can't get away with blowing the most saves in the side of the bracket. You can't get away with not being able to hit in the 9th inning and the 8th inning for an entire postseason.
Kevin, I was going to ask you actually, is Clay Holmes still going to be the closer? I know he was like a little better in the end of September.
It's going to be Luke Weaver. Luke Weaver's closed most of their clutch games, and he was great. But the problem the Yankees still run into is Aaron Boone uses Clay Holmes in the 8th. And we usually don't get to a 9th inning for Luke Weaver to save the game when that happens. So I mean, he's basically if they get to the 9th with a lead, Luke Weaver has been so great the last month that you feel good. Like you could almost sit back in the chair and just say, all right, you know, this is a really nice game here. But they don't get to the 9th with
Masa Yoshida really broke that, man. He really did.
Yeah, him and about 19 other players this season were all a part of breaking that, man. He's been awful, and he shouldn't even be on the roster.
No, I think Boone should put him back. Let's go. Let's get this going. Let's get him going again. You're only gonna go far if you get your closer going again. Look at the Mets and Diaz.
And just and in Cole's first start, just make sure the first pitch goes like 60 seconds over where it's supposed to be. He'll love that. He'll love it. It'll get him fired up. One thing about the Orioles that I want to say, if they're going to make the World Series, they need to get a good start in this wild card series. They got destroyed against the eventual champion Rangers at home in the postseason last year in the first 2 games. Their pitching was awful. I think Texas scored like 20 runs in those 2 games combined. They need to get Burns need to have a good start. The K per 9 has been down this year. It's been falling for the last 3 years, as it does with pitchers as they get into their 30s. But I mean, it goes without saying that Baltimore needs to win Game 1, but I think that Baltimore needs to win a close, low score, at least low scoring Game 1. They need to have Burns show up as the ace that they signed or they traded for him to be.
They really need to win tonight's game because if they have Are they down 1-0 to Lugo tomorrow? I think the Lugo game tomorrow is a Royals win. So I am very weary of Baltimore if they lose this game tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I think
which I could see. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I know Cole Reagans is not Garrett Cole, but Burns, Cole in a playoff atmosphere, they didn't even touch Garrett Cole in that game, which worries me about their offense in Corbin Burns starts. It's not a Garrett Cole agenda here. It's I'm worried about their offense in big games against big starters.
Well, then why don't we worry about the fact that they didn't hit a big pitcher in Garrett Cole? I mean, that's also another thing. They kind of in a big moment where it felt like a postseason game, they didn't step up to the occasion.
I worry about the fact that they got their asses kicked last year, and we've said that a few times throughout the summer, but the fact that they didn't even show up to play Texas last season is incredibly concerning for me with this group, because I've never seen anything from this group to say, oh, this is a good postseason team. And they're young still to the point, it's only their second trip, so I'm not going to sit here and say they can't play in the playoffs because we still have to see it. But after last year, I wouldn't be surprised if they can.
No, the inexperience is a thing. Now, you mentioned they're not afraid to play the Yankees. That might be a different story, but I mean, we've seen multiple times. We saw it last postseason. We've seen it this year, late in a pennant race, where they just didn't look ready to play. They looked like that inexperienced team. So, yeah, that's certainly a concern. The other thing is the bullpen's atrocious. I mean, that's the problem I have with this team is that, you talk about the Yankees, can't win the World Series because, you don't trust them late in games defensively or with their bullpen. I don't trust this bullpen. That's why I think the Yankees are going to beat this team. It's going to be the bullpen that really cost them here.
And that's why I think Cleveland is an underrated World Series choice, even though no one really fears them. You have an MVP in your lineup. You have a team that knows how to create runs, whether it's only 3 or 4 runs a game or 7. They just know how to create. And their bullpen is far and away the best in the American League bracket. And
it's 6-inning game.
It's 6-inning game against Cleveland, and their starters might give up 3 or 4, but they're hitting for 9. You're hitting for 6 because that bullpen is electric. Houston also has a pretty good pen compared to the rest of the field, but Cleveland's underrated for that reason.
I think I think this entire American League is just so wide open. It's the most wide open I ever remember it being. It's so fascinating on both sides. You have 6 teams or at least 5 that you can believe in the National League can get to the World Series. I'll add the Mets in there with 5, but I don't think the Braves will do it. On the other side, you have really a bunch of question marks and uncertainty among all 6 of these teams. There's not really a complete team in that American League field. Now, I, for one, would say it would be pretty embarrassing not to make this American League playoff field this year. But that's a conversation for another day, because this American League playoff field is as bad as it's been in a long time, especially the 3 wild cards couldn't get in there. Nice. But I think it's fascinating from both sides because you have like these powerhouses in the National League, like, the storylines, they're endless. And on the other side, it's just a bunch of question marks. And, I just want to say one more thing on that Orioles Royals series, sort of what gives, right? The Royals' atrocious offense on the road. I mean, atrocious, terrible. Against Baltimore's pitching, which I know they now have a solidified ace in Burns. Their pitching, I mean, we can say it. I think they gave up 9 runs a game last postseason. Like, it was horrible. And they were the number 1 seed. And I get the Rangers ended up winning the World Series. They need to get off to a good start, because if they don't, I don't see that young team coming back. I don't know. They don't like, who's their veteran leader in the middle of that lineup? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't have. I mean, it's really Santander, who is not
Ryan O'Hearn.
All right. Yeah, exactly. This is exactly our problem that we're running into here. Last year, just to confirm, the Orioles with home field advantage against the Rangers, close game 1, they lost 3-2. Then they lost 7-1 at home, and then they lost 11-8 at Texas. So they got absolutely shelled in the
I think it was the other way around, Kevin. I think the 7-1 was on the road.
Oh, yeah, 7-1 was on the road, 11. Okay, yeah, you're right. But close first game, everything else a mess.
It's a great memory there, Jack.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's really good with schedules. Has he ever told you that?
Are you really?
Oh, yeah. We're not doing this now because Kevin's gonna end the stream.
What do you mean? What do we mean by this?
I mean, you go back like
a lot of people have like a special skill that not that many other people have. Jax is completely useless, and you can like name a date from a Red Sox season, and it'll tell you what happened. And a few months ago, he had me do it, and I picked one game, the most obscure game,
man. Come on,
I could find from the last 2 years, and he had no idea. So,
all right, September 12th, 2014.
No, we're not. I said like last 5 years.
Okay, bro. Useless.
See,
that's
useless skill.
That's still a pretty like.
Okay.
Mike.
September 5th, September 6th, 2021.
Oh, you literally just gave me. You gave me 2021. You could have at least given me. That was.
I don't trust that you're right. So that's the problem.
I got it pulled up right now. But are you doing a Google? This is taking a little while here.
Well, I know it was Tampa Bay at home, right?
September 6th, you said?
Yeah. Should be Tampa
Bay at home.
It's crazy.
And they won that game. No, hold on. They lost that game, right? Didn't like 11-10 or something?
11-10, 10-inning game.
What the hell? How did you
he actually is able to do this. The game I gave you was, I think, 2022.
It was June 9th, 2021. It was a made-up game between them and the Marlins.
Yeah, I was looking for one of those made-up games. It was on a Monday, wedged between an Astros and Yankees series. and you said the Yankees score from the day before, and then you said the Astros score from the day after, but you had no idea that the Marlins game was.
That is all right. I do trust that you can do this now.
Yeah.
All right, that's impressive. Good on you.
Yeah,
Jack.
and then when it comes to skills that people will pay you for, will praise you for. Jack is really not cutting it in those areas, but when you have a schedule guessing game, he's the guy.
Did you guys see my text on Saturday about what happened when I was calling a game at WestCon?
No, what happened?
I was like doing my open and the game was about to start, and I'm on like the third deck at WestCon, and I have my two charts like taped to a manila folder. And they just slipped out of my hands and fell into the stands off the third deck.
Excellent. Really great.
You do the game with no notes? What happened?
No, somebody brought it back up to me.
Oh, thank God.
And I was like, well, we don't have my charts. No idea what was going on.
And even if you had them, it wouldn't have helped you with the broadcast.
Yeah, no.
All right, you guys have anything else on the playoffs here?
Nah, Jack was just a big hater yesterday. I had to mute him. I had to mute him during the Mets game.
I said one thing.
What's the deal with the Mets hater? What did you say? I love seeing Mets fans in pain.
Yeah,
that's a significant one thing.
He said one thing, and that wasn't even what I like muted him for.
I think it's a lot of envy because I did draw a lot of similarities between the Red Sox and the Mets this year.
Besides the playoff one, that wasn't.
Yeah, besides the playoff one. And I don't know, just like I have so many Mets fan friends or like friends, like Michael Merlo friends. I don't know. Like I have a very love-hate relationship with the Mets because I love when they beat the Yankees, but at the same time I don't like when they're good and the Red Sox aren't. If that makes any sense.
That's
no, it doesn't. I mean, I get it. You can explain it clearly, but
you know.
Can we get into some Red Sox offseason talk?
No, absolutely not. We're gonna wrap the stream up. Rest in peace, Pete Rose.
Yes.
You know,
baseball
player.
Hall of Famer, by the way.
Baseball
should be
Famer,
absolutely
great player, all-time hits leader. And rest in paradise, pal. Thanks for everything. All right, we're wrapping up. Burrows Friday, hardline tomorrow, right, Mike? Or today?
Today we're having technical difficulties with the video, so it's on audio
hardline
right
today.
now. Spotify and Apple Pod.
Mets are getting swept by the Phillies.
Okay.
Mike has the Mets in the championship series, so
yeah, and I have the White Sox sneak it in this year.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
All right, that's it. Thanks for watching, Jack. Thanks for joining us, Mike. Thanks always. We will be back Friday morning. We'll recap the wild card rounds. We'll recap the Mets 2-game Series L to finish the year against the Brewers, and we'll move on to what will become a wonderful 3 weeks for us as the Yankees make their run to number 20.
Oh yeah.